Good morning, and welcome back, everybody. We've got another awesome episode lined up for you today. We're doing back and biceps here in the episode that you're about to watch, and we're going to be talking about the last remaining group of muscles and their volume requirements. That's going to be the entire back, your traps, your whole back, and your rear delts. Now, we've gone over these definitions a couple times here. I'm going to throw them all up on the screen for you so you can understand what it is we're looking at when we're talking about these volume landmarks. Again, though, I want you to key in and focus in on just two of them, as that's where we're really going to be focusing in our attention. That's again going to be our MAV, or our maximum adaptive volume, and our MRV, our maximum recoverable volume. These are generally the rep ranges that a non-beginner lifter is going to want to be training in order to maximize the muscle growth and the hypertrophy training that they can do within the given muscle groups. So let's dive right into it. We're going to start with the back as a whole here, and I've put the back in quotation marks because when we're discussing the back, it's important to note that the back is not a singular muscle, but a large collection of muscles. Thus, we want to be examining training of the back by splitting up our training into horizontal movements and pulling movements. Typically, the former, or the horizontal movements, are going to largely build that thickness in your back, whereas the latter, or those pulling movements, are going to largely build the width in your back. We're going to talk more about this here shortly, but just remember that when we talk about the set ranges that you're going to need in a given week, we are splitting that up between horizontal and pulling movements. Now, as with a lot of our exercises that we've talked about before, you're going to want to start testing the waters somewhere between your MAV or your MRV if you're a bit more experienced, and then just add more volume as you find you're needed. As you can see here, that's going to put us somewhere between 8 and 20 total sets in a week and 20 to 26 total sets in a week. It's a pretty wide range when you think about it, and we can supplement that with somewhere between 1 and 3 exercises per session, or 2 to 5 exercises per week. Just remember that adding more exercises in a given workout can complicate that single workout needlessly. So keep your exercise selection as minimal as possible while not getting bored or sacrificing your strict form or ROM by doing the same exercise for way too many sets. We've also discussed before, obviously, that sticking to one exercise for any later work in the week really can get a little bit too boring and can lead to us sacrificing. Alternating to another exercise can alter that movement pattern, which is going to help lower the strain on any specific parts of the muscles you're working, as well as the connective tissues in there, which is going to help reduce your risk of injury and just keep those workouts a little bit more fresh and thus keep your attention focused. Now, like most of our muscles, the back's going to benefit from a wide array of rep range training. A rep range of 10 to 20 reps offers the best combination of stimulus, fatigue, injury risk, slow and fast twitch fiber involvement, as well as mind-muscle connection. Thus, 50% of your work could be spent in that 10 to 20 rep range, where the other 50% is split between some heavy work in that 5 to 10 rep range and the lighter work in 20 to 30 rep ranges. However, an item to consider when you're selecting the rep ranges is what secondary muscles may tire out with the rep ranges you're going to pick. For example, if you're doing bent over barbell rows or other back movements that would require you to support yourself, in this example, your lower back is more likely to fatigue and give out before the actual back muscles that you're intending to work with that barbell bent over row. In movements like this, it may be beneficial to choose rep ranges on that lower end, 5 to 20 reps at most, to avoid fatiguing those supporting muscles versus the primary muscle that you're trying to target. With that in mind, you can keep your rep ranges high on machine-based movements like a seated row or a seated lat pull-down, which would offer isolation without the worry of secondary muscle degradation. Now lastly, as we mentioned just a minute or so ago, unlike most other muscle groups, you do need to train both horizontal and vertical movements within your training plan. That means you need to have both horizontal and vertical stimulus in every workout that you're doing. This might sound complicated, but it can be broken down fairly simply. As an example, let's say you hit your back only twice a week. In your first session, you may prioritize horizontal movements like a barbell row or a T-bar row or even a single arm dumbbell row for 6 sets of a lower rep range, somewhere around 5 to 12 reps. In the same workout, you then might accompany that back movement with some additional vertical pulling movements like a pull-up or a machine pull-down or single arm cable pull-down for 3 sets of a higher rep range, like 12 to 20 reps. By doing it like this, you've prioritized some horizontal movements, giving it more total sets, and then accompanied it with some lighter reps, higher rep ranges for fewer sets of the vertical movements. Thus, on your second back day, you can prioritize vertical pulling movements like a weighted pull-up or a machine high row for 6 or more sets of a lower rep range like 5 to 10 reps, and then again in the same workout, accompany those with some horizontal movements like an incline dumbbell row or a machine low row for 3 sets of, let's say, 10 to 15 reps. Doing this is going to give you the most variety and the best chances of growing your back in both the width and the thickness that it needs to appear as large as possible and define those muscles as best as possible. Alrighty, now the back is a large group of muscles, as we said, and I promise the rest of these muscles are going to be a little bit simpler. Let's move on to our traps. Like most of our other muscles, you can start with your MAV or your MRV if you're more experienced. And as you can see, that's going to be somewhere between 4 and 12 sets per week and 12 to 20 sets per week. One thing to note here is that our MV, our maintenance volume, can be as low as 0 in a given week. And this is because the traps will indirectly be worked by other exercises, thus allowing us at a minimum to maintain the size and the strength without any direct training, perhaps even continuing to grow them in size or strength based on the exercise selection we're doing and how involved the traps are. Obviously, this can happen through normal back exercises, but you could even be doing trap work when you're doing leg work, like you do with stiff leg deadlifts or walking dumbbell lunges, where you're supporting those weights and perhaps even moving the weight a little bit with those traps. Generally, though, you're going to be looking at 1 exercise per session when you're isolating the traps, maybe 2 to 3 per week as necessary, and it should be very simple to hit the volume requirements with these exercise selections. The traps, like the overall back, benefit from a wide range of reps, and really everything benefits it equally. Thus, it would be beneficial to do most of your training, 50% or more, in that 10 to 20 rep range, with the other 50% of your training being split between low and high rep ranges. One thing to consider here is a failure point, and this is going to be your overall grip. I would highly invest in a good set of grips or wrist wraps that can help you hold on to the barbell or dumbbell or cable machine implement that you're using, and not allow your overall grip to be the failure point in your trap training. We can obviously do dedicated forearm movements. We can obviously try to increase our overall grip strength. But if we're trying to target our traps or any back muscle, we really want to make sure that our grip is not the failure point in those exercises. So do consider getting yourself some Versa grips, Viper grips, or whatever your favorite brand of wrist wraps are to make sure that you're securely holding on to that weight and allowing your traps and all of your back muscles to be taken all the way to failure without worrying about your overall grip failing. All right. Lastly, but certainly not leastly, let's talk about our rear delts. I told y'all we would come back to them when we talked about our shoulders previously, and we're going to talk about them here today. Just like with our other muscles, you're going to want to start somewhere between your MAV and MRV for your weekly needs. That's going to be between 4 and 12 sets per week or 12 to 20 sets per week. Just like our traps, though, we may need no direct training, as the rear delts are going to get a lot of work through other back exercises that we do throughout the week. This is especially true when the exercises are done with a close grip and a very deep range of motion, which we always want to be striving for with all of our back movements. With this in mind, I do want to throw a word of caution out there that the vast majority of lifters don't need any direct rear delt work, but give it a try, see what you need, and if you want to focus on your rear delts, certainly throw that into your training as you find you need it and want it. You're going to be able to hit these set needs with 1 to 2 exercises per session, 2 to 5 in a given week, just for variety and injury avoidance. As far as rep ranges go, your rear delts are going to benefit most from a moderate rep range of about 10 to 20 reps. Just like our side delts, the rear delts benefit very little from heavy loads in that 5 to 10 rep range, and you're going to have a much greater stimulus and growth from the 20 to 30 rep range. So your training plan might have 50% of your weekly training in that 10 to 20 rep range, and the other 50% in that 20 to 30 rep range. But it's your body. You're going to have to play around with it. You're going to have to experiment and see what works best for you. Just remember though, that like the rest of the shoulder, the delts are very small muscles. Too heavy of a weight and lower rep ranges can really unnecessarily increase the risk of injury overall. So there we have it, everybody. These are the hypertrophy landmarks that the Renaissance periodization team has found to be the most successful from a bodybuilding and hypertrophy standpoint. I've included sources down below for you, as Dr. Mike and the RP team have done an amazing job documenting this information through their years of training. I hope all the information here was useful for you, but if you have additional questions, please leave them down in the comments. Let's talk about it further and see how we can best help one another achieve the best training goals that we have for ourselves. I'll see you all next time. Stay strong. Keep believing in yourself. I certainly believe in you.